Hi, I'm Jamaaladeen Tacuma, and welcome to Alternative Jazz Venues, Venues for Jazz. And you know what? I'm telling you something. I am extremely happy to be here this evening. There's a lot going on in this world, and I'm telling you, just to be able to just sit down for a moment and just be a part of this is a wonderful thing. I was just speaking to Gail, and thank you, Gail, for having me here. I tell you, it's a wonderful experience just to be able to share. We don't get a chance to share because most of us are on the road a lot or doing studio recording, and it's an opportunity that we all must have to be able to do all that we can do. We have to make moments. And Gail, you doing this for us, I'm so appreciative to it. Um, I'm not. It's not really about me. It's about all the people that's come before me that helped me to do what I do. I'm I'm extremely grateful and extremely humbled the fact that being here in Philadelphia, there were so many people that were pioneers and forerunners in the music that allowed me to do what I've been doing. It's not about me. It's really about those people that came before and all of those things that they laid out for us to do. We've In Philadelphia, there's always been a collective of musicians, a community of musicians that has been really important for the world. A lot of the bass players come from here. Um, a lot of the composers, producers, and various entities of genres of music that has come from Philadelphia. My story started in a little town, well, in Philadelphia, but my getting my hands on any kind of instrument happened in a little town in North Carolina called Whiteville, North Carolina, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later in terms of what happened there and how I started to play the bass guitar. Um, but my story starts off here in Philadelphia, going to a theater called the Uptown Theater, where um, you would see a lot of the different musicians playing. There was a an organization that was putting these shows together with the along with the radio station WHAT and WDAS. They were in Philadelphia here, and Georgie Woods was the name of. Hold on one second. I'm going to get something to share with you. I'm going to get something to share with you. Hold on. I got to share it with you. You have to know this. You got to know it. Okay. All right. So in Philadelphia, there was this theater called the Uptown Theater. And actually, I have a picture of it here. And this might be one of the only pictures of this theater inside of the theater. There are some photos of this theater from the outside, but this is a photo from the inside. And that guy that's playing bass right here with that custom amplifier and the 1966 Fender bass, his name is Val Burke. He was the first bass player that I saw. At that time, we talk in 1966, 1968, 1970, onto the early 70s. There was a lot of singing groups. You had the Motown people, Smokey Robinson and the Miracles. You had the Temptations. You had Four Tops. Then you had James Brown doing the more funkier stuff. Um, and what happened was there was this concept of the singing groups that was happening in Philadelphia. You had the Delphonics, you had the Stylistics, you had Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff. They started Philadelphia International Records. They were making recordings, they were producing, and this place, the Uptown Theater, is where all of these people would come and perform on what they called the Chitlin Circuit. We could talk about that later. You might have some questions about that, but the Chitlin Circuit, the Uptown Theater in Philadelphia, the Howard in Washington, the Regal in Chicago Theater, the Apollo in New York. this is where all of these groups would play, because at that time they had hit records. They had hit records out at the time, and so they would do the performances, and you know that the songs that they had on the radio at the time were only like 2 and 3 minutes, unlike most of the performances that they have now, which are like some of the records are 5 minutes on radio. But at that time, all the songs were basically 2 minutes. You had to write a song in 2 minutes in order to have it on the radio. 2 to 3 minutes. 3 minutes was actually too long. So it would be like 6 or 7 or 8 groups on a show. And so they would have, you know, their time to do all their songs. And then they would do this show 10 days. So it'd be like 4 or 5 shows a day for 10 days. Could you imagine that? Sheesh. And so these guys, they were part of the group that was doing this. These guys were called Willie and the Mighty Magnificents. And they were the backup band for the group called The Moments. They had I Found Love on a Two-Way Street. They had that song out. They had, there was another group called The Whatnots. And they were part of the all platinum sound out of Jersey with Sylvia Robinson, who actually became the forerunner in hip hop records, right? And so this theater, I would see everybody there. And this guy, his name was Georgie Woods. We called him Georgie Woods, the man with the goods. He was a DJ on the radio, and he would host these shows at the Uptown. So I would see these shows. My mother would like give me money to go to the shows, and I would, you know, sit there in the theater and, you know, like watch one show, then they show a movie, and then you watch another show. So I would, you know, myself and my friends, we would be there most of the day just geeking off of these shows and watching these bands play. This particular bass player, Val Burke, my first experience seeing a bass player, they were on stage playing, and they were probably playing like a Sly and the Family Stone song. If you've never heard of Sly and the Family Stone, check out Sly and the Family Stone and their bass player, Larry Graham. So this band here, they were probably playing one of their songs, probably the song called Higher. I want to take you higher. They were playing that song. The band let him have a solo, right? This is the first time I ever saw this. He started doing his solo, and in the middle of his solo, he takes his hands off the bass and start blowing his fingers like they were on fire. I was done. That was it. I said, that's what I said, I don't know if I would have like blown my fingers like they were on fire, but I want to play bass like that. And aside from that, having listened to him playing on all of those records, you know, I'm in contact with Val now. We talk, and he's sort of really underrated. And I hope to be doing something in tribute to him later. But he has been a complete inspiration to me in terms of sound, movement, the way that he moves on the bass guitar, and the way that he accompanied those recording sessions at the time. And when I saw that, I was like, wow, that's what I want to do. Because before that, I used to be a singer, you know, in a singing group, you know. Like Bruno Mars is doing now, you know, that record that they have out now with they had like the singing group, they kind of sort of recapturing that moment of the 70s where they were singing groups. But, you know, I was actually in a singing group at that time called the Versatones, which was comprised of the brothers of a singer named Brenda Payton, who at that time had a band called Brenda and the Tabulations. And so we had a group. I lived in the projects in North Philadelphia. We had a group there. And so after seeing this guy play bass, I wanted to play bass. So my mother used to send me down south to Whiteville, North Carolina every summer. And when I was there, I would help my uncle and aunt on the farm, because my mom used to send me down there to sort of escape all the gang wars that was happening in Philadelphia at the time. So one day in particular, I was there in the house, and I noticed in the corner there was a guitar. And this guitar, I asked, who did the guitar belong to? Nobody in the house knew where this guitar came from. I was like, nobody knows who this guitar belongs to? They were like, nope, don't belong to me. Don't belong to me. Aunt, does that belong to you? Doesn't belong to me. My cousin Jerry. Nope, don't belong to me. It just appeared there. I was like, okay. I picked the guitar up, And the guitar normally has 6 strings. A guitar normally has 6 strings. This particular guitar only had 4 strings on it. And I'm sure that it wasn't in tune because I didn't know how to tune or anything. But I did learn how, I picked it up and I did learn how to play the song Get Ready by the Temptations on 1 string. Like do 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 do, and I learned how to play that on 1 string. I came home right before school started. My mother and I was walking down Broad and Erie Avenue in Philadelphia, walked past a pawn shop. I looked up there, I saw a bass guitar. I say, wow, Mom, I would like to have that. So she didn't say anything. 2 weeks later, I come home from school. Boom, a box was on my bed. Opened the box, there was that bass guitar. And for 1 year, I stayed in that room and learned how to play. And now, 1 week later, actually getting that bass on, say, Thursday, that Tuesday, I was in my first band. I was in my first band. I was just playing with them. And I told them that I had all this equipment. And they, at that time, like if you had a lot of equipment, they would let you in the band. I told them I had amps, guitars, and drums, and basses. And that was actually my first lie. I mean, like, ugh. And I think about it today. I'm not a liar. I'm not a liar. I'm a very truthful person. But when I think about what I did to get in that band at that time, that is the only lie that I can remember actually faithfully saying and carrying out. So when it came time for the first show, they said, okay, where's all your equipment at? I said, oh, I don't have anything. They forgave me. The band was called The Soul Experience. We played in Philadelphia. At the time, there was a lot of social activities that was happening with the musicians, unlike now. Now, I think musicians are getting back into playing together, collaborating with each other with live instrumentation on that scene. But in that time, in the neighborhoods, there was all kinds of bands. And we were playing, and we, like as a teenager, as a 15-year-old, 16-year-old teenager, I was making money even then playing, on weekends. And we were playing. We had a place here in Philadelphia called Connie Mack Recreation Center where all of the bands would play. We would all play, you have 4 different bands and everybody would be playing the same songs one after the other. But it was cool because, each person did a different arrangement. So anyway, that's how I started doing what I did. I finished up high school, wanted to be a basketball player, but when I got to high school, I decided that I wanted to play music instead. Played in the high school band. We had a high school band, which was a Latin band, unlike most high school bands, which were marching bands. This band, our band, was a Latin salsa band because I lived in the area in Philadelphia where all of the Latin bros were, and we would play. And our music teacher, the great mentor, Mr. Kip Morris, formed this band that was complete Latin band. So we played all of the jazz music, we played Latin music, and some rock music and funk music. And that was my start. That was my beginning, playing in school and playing with the local band in Philadelphia. When I got out of high school, I received an invitation to play with an organ player named Charles Erlin. His nickname is the Mighty Burner. He was part of a tradition of the organ trio, which was usually guitar, organ, and drums, or drums, organ, or saxophone. And so we talking like early 70s where everybody was experimenting with fusion. So you had this fusion of rock and jazz. Hence, Mahavishnu Orchestra, Weather Report, people out of Europe, Terence Ripdal, Eberhard Weber, all the ECM stuff that was coming out of Europe was basically incorporating that whole concept of rock and jazz. You had Return to Forever with Chick Corea and Stanley Clarke and Lenny White and Al Di Meola. And so Charles wanted to experiment with that. So he brought me in as bass player. And that lasted for about a year. And I had got a scholarship to go to Berkeley. I didn't want to go. Berkeley School of Music. I didn't want to go. And why? Because I wanted to be a musician that was involved in the mix. I wanted to be in that mix. I wanted to be out there. I wanted to do all the things that I had wanted to do and dreamed of doing. in my room when I was playing that whole year, when I was in there shedding for that whole year, checking out all the jazz festivals that was happening all throughout the world, playing on recording sessions, playing around with musicians and collaborating with musicians, and starting my career off also not as a bass player, but working as a producer. So that's something that I wanted to do. And I didn't want to go to school. I didn't want to go to college because I wanted to do that side of it. In hindsight, when I think about it, I think I got more educated doing what I did. And I thought it was the right choice to do what I did. You know, everybody has to do what they have to do. They have to make the decision what they have to do. But even today, it's difficult, even for that person that pays all that money to go to school. It's difficult for them to acquire a proper situation in the job scenario when they come out of school. So in my assessment, I thought and I felt as though that I had made the right choice for myself. Um, that gig lasted for about a year. So something happened in Newark, New Jersey, where I was let go from Charles's band. In Newark, New Jersey, after a concert, he says, "Hey, Rudy," because my name at the time was Rudy. He said, "Rudy," he says, "Come back here. Let me pay you." I said, "Okay." So he said, "Okay, I'm gonna have to tell you something." I said, "What?" He says, "I'm not going to be able to use you anymore." I'm like, "What? You're gonna fire me?" I said, "I didn't go to Berkeley. Now you're gonna fire me? I've been on the road for about a year with you, and you're gonna fire me? Come on." So I was broken up. I was hurt a little bit, you know. But it's funny because I have the same kind of mentality now as I had then. I was patient. Patience is really something that you guys have to understand. Patience is a quality. You know, we're so used to now to making things happen really fast and this and that and the other and stabbing each other in the back trying to, get up the ladder. But no, 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 just be patient. You know, if the creator has something for you, it will not pass you. Believe me. And if it's something that's not meant for you, it's not going to be meant for you. So you just have to, as a young artist and as a young musician or anything that you're doing in your career, just do your best work. Let your work speak for itself and be patient. So about 1 week after that firing, I come back home to Philadelphia. My mother said, "It's okay, baby. It's all right." I was like 18 years old. I got a call from Reggie Lucas and James Ntume. James Ntume and Reggie Lucas were at that time with Miles Davis. Reggie Lucas is a guitar player, a producer. James Ntume was a percussionist producer. They went on to becoming famous producers, writing songs for Roberta Flack, writing songs for Stephanie Mills, and producing Stephanie Mills' initial albums. Reggie went on to become Madonna's first producer on her first album. So they knew me as a young brother coming up here in Philadelphia. They told Ornette Coleman about me. They asked me would I be able to come to New York to rehearse and audition for Ornette for a tour that Ornette was going to be doing in Europe for 2 weeks. I spoke to Ornette. He says, "Come." And I had heard about Ornette before, didn't know a lot about him because, mind you, I was coming up in a different kind of a different world in terms of the 70s so all the earlier stuff I really wasn't completely familiar with. But that's okay because here I was, a young mind ready to be molded in a positive way. So spoke to Ornette, came to his loft on Prince Street, the Artist House, which is famously known for the concerts that he used to do there. Went there, rehearsed it with him, auditioned with him or whatever. And he says, "Yep, I like you. I want to take you on the road with me." I was like, "Cool. We're going to go on the road for 2 weeks." Told my mother, got my passport, told my mother was going to go to Europe for 2 weeks. And guess what? We wound up staying in Europe for 6 months. 6 months. It was crazy. I called my mom and said, "Mom," I said, "Mom, I'm in Europe, as you know, but we're going to be here a little bit longer than I thought, 6 months, and everything is cool. I'm in Paris." And so I was in Paris. Paris was our home base, but we would go to England, we would go to Italy, we would go to Switzerland, we would go to all these places and do all these concerts and then come back to our base in Paris. And in Paris, we recorded our first recording as prime time called "Dancing in Your Head" and "Body Meta" and "Of Human Feelings." And so that jump started me. I started playing with the second when I came back home after that tour. I started working with a vibraphonist named Walt Dickerson, who's a wizard on the vibes. The late great Walt Dickerson, amazing on the vibraphone. We know about all these other guys, but Walt Dickerson, you guys got to check out. And there is a recording of Walt Dickerson playing along with Sun Ra on piano and Walt on vibes. And Ornette used to say that Walt was a wizard on the vibes because he thought differently the way that he played. So now I'm being catapulted from playing funk and concept of early jazz to now working with these mind-blowing cats who are like improvisers who were just putting me out there in terms of what was possible on the bass guitar. Started recording with a label called Gramavision, my first album entitled Showstopper, then Renaissance Man, the second album dedicated to Paul Robeson, then the third album, Jukebox, and then the bands I had called Cosmetic, and things just started rolling after that. And I am so glad and honored because the production and the promotion that went into those early records and that went into my early career is still working with me now, which is unfortunate with some of the younger artists. You know, it's difficult for them to get the right promotion that they need to do what they need to do. And thank God for the internet. Thank God for the internet in that with social media, the young artists today can promote themselves. They can do what they want to do. They can control the narrative as to how they want to be shown, what they want to say in their music, and how they can get that out to the world. It's really interesting that I've been blessed to work with so many different people in so many different genres because being with Ornette, I learned that music was music. I mean, you had the business of music, but music itself was music. And I didn't feel as though that I put myself in any kind of box. So I was able to invite the group, you know, the hip hop group, The Roots, to Germany for their first European tour. I was able to record with them on a record with Grover Washington Jr., and Questlove and Black Thought and Malik B on a record called Groove 2000 with Grover Washington Jr. So, and, you know, from doing that to working with the Alpine group in Vienna, Austria with my friend Wolfgang Pushnik, doing Alpine music mixed together with funk and jazz. So I would suggest that you guys not worry about categories. Just worry about the music and how you want to present yourself in a positive way. There's so much that I could share with you guys, but I'm just so glad that Gail has invited me to be able to just talk about it. You know, you guys can go to my website, www.jamaaladeenmusic.com. That's www.jamaaladeenmusic.com. You can find out more things about me. You can go to my Instagram page, which is Red Carpet Room. And it's interesting about the Red Carpet Room. Let me tell you about the Red Carpet Room. And you guys being at those places, see how these guys were, see how sharp these guys are here. They're clean, right? They're sharp, right? Let me tell you something. This is what we saw. This is all we know. This is what we do. When you hit the stage, guys, hit the stage in a way that you're going to bring your A game. Bring your A game from the music, from your design, from your fashion, from your presentation, on and on and on, because it's all a part of it. I can think of everybody, the Nicholas brothers who were dancing, to Duke Ellington, to Miles Davis, to Ornette Coleman, to Dizzy Gillespie, to Oscar Peterson. They all were sharp. Bring your A game. Now, the Red Carpet Room is a place here where I work as a stylist. I also work as a stylist, a fashion stylist. I get the guys together. You know, I say, what kind of performance you guys are doing? Maybe this will work for you. Maybe this will work for you. Try this. Try that. You know, try this hat. Try those glasses. It's important, guys. The whole concept of just your T-shirt, no. Give them more. Give them more. Give them something they're going to say, woo, what was that? What? After the performance, first of all, you're going to be killing them with your craft. your horn, your drums or whatever. And then after that, hit them with bam, hit them with some drip. hit them with some drip. Because that's just the only way to do it. Then that way, and the folks who come to see you, they're gonna remember that. But again, I'm being verbose about it. I'm being, jolly about it. But it is a serious thing. Bring your A game. Bring your A game. So the Red Carpet Room serves as a place where, as a fashion house, I could style my guys, because I want my guys to look good on stage. As a producer, I'm still working on all kinds of projects. I started a festival here in Philadelphia called the Outsiders Festival, and that's been really good festival in terms of bringing all the improvisers together. I have a project coming up called There He Stood at the Paul Robeson House here in Philadelphia. That's going to be premiered on February the 2nd, and it's going to be a tribute to Paul Robeson, sort of a continuation of a project that I did called The Renaissance Man in the 80s. Later on, I'm going to be doing as well a Paul Robeson piece called The Battle of Images for string quartet and fretless bass and percussion. And so that's going to happen. And also, I'm going to be working on my, thanks to South Arts, I'm going to be working on a project called The Dirt Road Experience. And that's based on when I used to go down south, working with my aunt and uncles, the origins of how I started. I'm going to be there doing a residency from February 13th to March 13th, engaging with the community there, engaging with the artists there, engaging with the musicians there. I'm going to hold an artist panel. I'm going to hold a welcoming panel where we're going to talk about the music, the migration of the North Carolinian musicians who came to Philadelphia. We're going to talk about how I started to play the bass down there, my fascination with Mickey Mouse and G.I. Joes, which started down there. So there's a whole thing that I'm doing down there. I'm going to be doing some concert performances at a restaurant called the Chef and Frog. I'm going to do a masterclass workshop at Southeastern College, where I have some roots there as well. And so it's going to be a fabulous time that I'm going to be doing some things with you guys. Please stay in contact with me. I can let you know what's going on. And I do hope that I've said some things that could inspire you, that would give you some information as to how you could be a better musician, how you can work yourself in this music world and do what you need to do. So thank you so very much, Gail, and everyone there, and peace.